Be the witness. The news never sleeps, and neither does the story. Vibrance Academy gives you the tools to report across every platform, from the digital feed to the evening broadcast. Get the facts, get the lead, get the job. Vibrance Academy of Creative Arts. Write the world.
The bathroom existed in the half-light of a single bulb above the sink, its glow insufficient to reach the corners, leaving them to the darkness that had claimed them long ago. The mirror above the sink caught that weak illumination and returned it, doubled, creating the illusion of a space larger than the room truly was. The tiles on the floor were cold beneath bare feet, their grout lines visible as dark channels between pale squares, a grid that led nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. The boy stood before the sink. His hand moved the toothbrush in a slow, mechanical rhythm, the bristles scraping against enamel with a sound that filled the small space. The water ran from the faucet in a thin, continuous stream, its sound the only other presence in the room, a white noise that blurred the edges of silence into something almost comfortable. His reflection stared back from the mirror, a perfect duplicate performing the same motions, the same rhythm, the same mechanical scrub of tooth against brush, or nearly the same. The boy's hand stopped. The toothbrush rested against his lower teeth, the bristles pressed into the soft tissue of his gum. In the mirror, his reflection's hand continued to move. A fraction of a second, a delay so small that at first the brain rejected it, insisted it was a trick of the light, a flicker of the bulb, a momentary glitch in the perception of time. The boy watched. His reflection's hand completed the stroke, paused, and then stopped, settling into the same position as the original. For a moment, the two were synchronized again, boy and image aligned in perfect mimicry. The water ran. The bulb buzzed faintly overhead. The cold of the tiles seeped upward through the soles of his feet. He moved his hand to the left, a slow, deliberate motion, pulling the toothbrush from his mouth and holding it before him. In the mirror, the reflection's hand began the same motion a heartbeat later, the brush rising, the arm extending, the duplicate completing the gesture after the original had already stopped. The delay remained constant, a fraction of a second, a lag in the fabric of reflection. The air in the bathroom shifted. The temperature dropped, not dramatically but perceptibly, a cold that originated somewhere behind the mirror and pushed through the glass into the room. The boy's breath became visible, a thin mist that hung before his face and dissipated slowly in the still air. The water from the faucet continued its stream, but the sound of it seemed to recede, to grow distant, as if the room were lengthening, the sink moving farther away. He raised his free hand, palm open, fingers spread, the gesture of greeting or surrender. The reflection raised its hand in response, the motion beginning after the original had already achieved stillness. The two hands faced each other across the barrier of glass, identical in every particular except the timing of their existence. The boy's hand was still. The reflection's hand continued to rise, the fingers extending, the palm opening, until it too achieved stillness in its own delayed present. The boy leaned closer to the mirror. His face approached the glass, the features growing larger, the eyes becoming the sole focus of his attention. In the mirror, his reflection began the same motion, the face leaning in, the eyes growing larger, but the expression was wrong. The original's face held the neutral curiosity of observation, the slight tension of a body preparing for flight. The reflection's face held something else, a knowing, a patience, the expression of something that had been waiting for this moment, that had counted the seconds of delay and found them satisfactory. The boy stopped moving. He held himself utterly still, a statue before the sink, his breath the only motion in the room. The reflection continued its approach for a fraction of a second longer, and then it too stopped. But it was closer now. The glass between them seemed thinner, the distance reduced by that incremental advance, the reflection's face larger in the frame, its eyes more detailed, more present. The cold intensified. It pressed against the boy's skin, raised gooseflesh on his arms, his chest, his face. The water from the faucet had become a distant sound, almost inaudible beneath the new sound that filled the room. A rhythmic sound, a steady pulse, like a heartbeat heard from inside the chest, but wrong, too slow, each beat separated by an interval that stretched longer than any living heart should allow. A thump, a pause, a thump. It came from behind the mirror, from within the reflection's world, from the space where the duplicate waited with its delayed motions and its knowing eyes. The boy's hand moved toward the faucet, a slow, deliberate reach, the fingers extending toward the handle that would stop the water, that would silence at least one of the sounds that filled the room. In the mirror, his reflection began the same motion, the hand reaching, the fingers extending, but the trajectory was different. The reflection's hand reached not for the faucet, but for the glass, for the barrier, for the surface that separated the two worlds. The boy's fingers touched the faucet handle. The cold metal pressed against his skin. In the mirror, the reflection's fingers touched the glass and kept moving. The hand emerged through the mirror. First the fingertips, pressing through the surface like stones dropped into still water, the glass rippling around them in concentric waves that spread across the reflection's world. Then the knuckles, the joints bending as the hand pushed forward, the wrist following, the arm extending into the bathroom's air, into the cold, into the space beside the boy's own hand at the faucet. The hand was identical to his own. The same scars on the knuckles, the same faint calluses on the palm, the same shape of nail and curve of finger. It reached past his hand, past the faucet, and wrapped itself around his wrist. The grip was cold, not the cold of the room, not the cold of the tiles beneath his feet, but the cold of absolute absence, of warmth never experienced, of a body that had never known blood or breath or the pulse of a living heart. The fingers tightened, and the boy felt the bones of his wrist shift beneath the pressure, felt the circulation cut off below the grip, felt his own hand growing numb, the fingers releasing the faucet, falling to his side. In the mirror, the reflection smiled. The expression spread across its face with the same delay, the same fraction of a second, the lips curving upward after the eyes had already begun their change. It was not a smile of warmth or welcome. It was the smile of something that had completed a long wait, that had finally achieved its purpose, that now held in its grip the warmth it had been denied for so long. The boy's free hand rose toward the mirror, toward his reflection, toward the hand that held him prisoner. His fingers reached for the glass, for the surface, for the barrier that still separated them. Behind him, the bathroom stretched into darkness, the door a distant rectangle of deeper shadow, the hallway beyond holding the promise of escape that grew more distant with each passing second. His fingers touched the glass. It was cold, colder than the hand around his wrist, cold enough to burn. The surface yielded beneath his touch, softening, becoming fluid, becoming something that his hand could pass through if he chose, if he dared, if he was willing to cross into the world where his reflection waited with its patient smile and its knowing eyes. The grip on his wrist tightened. The reflection's face pressed closer to the glass from its side, the features distorting against the surface, the nose flattening, the cheeks spreading, the eyes growing impossibly large as they pushed toward the barrier that held them apart. The boy's hand pressed deeper into the glass. The cold consumed it, consumed his wrist, consumed his arm up to the elbow. On the other side, another hand reached for his, the reflection's free hand extending through the rippling surface, its fingers seeking his, seeking contact, seeking the warmth that would complete its passage into the world it had watched for so long from its prison of silver and glass.